Are we ready to legalize prostitution in the United States?
And he was taking me who knows where. And back then I considered him a steady. I took trust in him. He gave me the $20. He goes, look, baby. I said, make a U-turn, baby, when he got out. I said, back out. He locked the doors. He goes, look, money's no problem. Here's your fucking money. He stabbed me right here. Okay? Right there.
He was my regular. You know, I've been on hotel dates with him and all of that, you know. And just this one particular day, he just felt like, oh, she trusts me, so let me, you know, do this to her, this, that, and the third, because I know it's not going to be a problem with her getting in the car. So I get in the car with him or whatever, and all of a sudden, two guys come out of the back of the car. It's not like, all right, you know how a car has a trunk in the back? Like, the trunk is right there? It was like that. They came out of the trunk, and one of them had a gun in my head talking about, bitch, you gonna come with me. I'm like, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? And it just, I mean, I couldn't do nothing. I was in shock, you know what I'm saying? And all I was worried about, I mean, I know I had a gun in my head, but all I was worried about was coming back to my daddy. That's the main thing that was on my mind. And they held me hostage. They made me do a lot of things that I didn't want to do. For example, you know, like they made me fuck 8 guys, including the 2 that had the gun in my head. You know what I'm saying? So that really fucked me up.
I got into the life when I was 12 years old. I was still in junior high school at the time. I was in the life since I was 16.
I was 13.
Yeah, I was 14.
I was 15, 16.
13 and a half, going on 14.
I got in it when I was 12.
I started at the age of 13.
The $11 million that would be saved from law enforcement going after prostitutes will be redirected towards services for prostitutes, meaning health care, perhaps, drug therapy, physical therapy, that sort of thing. Why not legalize prostitution? Because then brothels will be taxed, prostitutes will be taxed, and that will boost the economy. And in these economic times, this is the one time I think that this sort of proposition in San Francisco could be passed. And
what happens is the laws prevent working women who are trying to make an independent living from reporting crimes to the police, make us very vulnerable to assault, rape, theft, and even murder. If prostitution were legal and were treated like other jobs, if the management in prostitution were treated like management in other industries, we would have a much better situation for everybody.
So here now is Mr. Stossel. All right, let's take this prostitution thing first. The reason that it isn't legal is a public health reason, that if you allow prostitutes to just do whatever they want to do, neighborhoods get ruined, underage prostitution comes in, violence comes in. Some of the prostitutes have, you know, knives in their whatever. People beat up prostitutes, customers do. So it's a chaotic kind of world. Do you take that into consideration?
Yes, and I totally disagree. All those things happen because it's illegal. The pictures you showed were street prostitution. Where it's legal, say in most of Nevada, none of that happens.
What's unsafe about prostitution is prostitution itself. It's what men are doing to those women behind closed doors. And so legalizing it so as to give men a constitutional right to keep doing that and to encourage more of them to do that isn't going to make women any safer. You know, the safety argument's often premised on the idea that it will move women indoors. But if you decriminalize prostitution both on the street and indoors, which is what the court cases are seeking to do, you're not going to change anything about the pattern of the demand or about the places where the women go. They're going to stay exactly where they are.
What Senator Harry Reid told lawmakers in Nevada. He says that legal prostitution keeps businesses from coming to that state.
I've talked to families who feel the same way. Parents who don't want their children to look out a school bus and see a brothel. or to live in a state with the wrong kind of red lights, the mall.
Well, Reed says that he wants Nevada to be known for new ideas, not the world's oldest profession. One brothel owner says that Reed's claim that prostitution hurts businesses is a lie. There's a misconception that people have. It's not legal in Vegas.
Outside counties with cities of more than 250,000 population. So that excludes Las Vegas, and that excludes the Reno, Carson County. So
prostitution is not legalized in Reno or Las Vegas. That's a big misconception. There's only 2 counties in the state that prostitution is not legalized in, and that's the counties that are holding. So you have to go to Bunny Ranch in Carson City, Nevada.
Say
I see it as buying another human being, which fundamentally is wrong.
Brian, why don't you view it in the same way that we view, for example, somebody purchasing a massage? It's a service. It's not buying or purchasing the body of another human being.
Sex is fundamentally different than a massage. Sex is fundamentally different than you paying me $10 an hour to lay some bricks in your garden and put up a little wall. I mean, that's manual physical labor as well. But it is fundamentally different. And people know that by the fact that they say, if you ask them, would you like your wife or daughter to be a prostitute? They'll say no.
Oh, but Brian, come on. If I asked you, would you like your wife or daughter to work at McDonald's for the rest of her life as a career, what would you say to that?
I'd say if they want to do that, that's fine.
Okay,
it's a valid job. It's very different than being a prostitute.
Toilets, Brian? What about cleaning toilets as a career choice?
As a career choice, in fact, I know people that run cleaning companies. They
running
do quite
a cleaning
well.
company, but doing the actual dirty work itself.
There's nothing wrong with manual labor, but there's a fundamental difference between manual labor and being a prostitute, which is why people recoil at the idea. I hear where you're coming from, but I disagree with you. And just saying it's a capitalist transaction, I don't think it makes it acceptable. Do we just then turn around and regulate it and tax?
But regulating and taxing the job of prostitution, the service of prostitution, which is what we're talking about here, would be a step up from having it criminal like it is right now. Now, of course, the liberty side of things is just one of the 2 arguments that are important here. The other one is security of the person, a charter-guaranteed right that each of us have. And it's true that all of the things that are currently criminal, like the body houses and living off of the avails of prostitution and communication for the purposes of prostitution. All of those things push both women and men onto the streets. And it's street prostitution, Brian, that is really the big problem. When you look at the numbers on the women and the men who are subject to violence, it's usually surrounding street prostitution. In Nevada, where brothels are legal, violence is not unheard of, but it's much less. There's much less violence in Nevada. And similarly in New Zealand. I suspect the same is true of Germany and New South Wales and Australia as well. And what we want to do is limit the amount of violence that people who are going to engage in prostitution are going to be confronted with. And here is a way to limit the amount of violence. Let me make a second point too, Brian, to get to your concern about your daughter not becoming a prostitute. What we've discovered in New Zealand is that after they decriminalized prostitution, the number of prostitutes declined. Now that might seem counterintuitive, right? If you make something, if you decriminalize an activity, you expect to see it, that's what an economist will tell you anyways, you expect the number of prostitutes to increase.
We're not allowed to leave the premises except for 3 hours once a week in order to go into town to the doctor. Other than that, you are here 24 hours a day and on call. They're waking you up no matter what time of day, no matter how many hours of sleep. It's brutal.
You're in a place that you cannot leave. Standing in line, competing. Then you must live together. You're angry. You're goddamn pissed off. And yet you hold your tongue because you don't want to be fired.
Are we ready to legalize prostitution in the United States?